In the state of California, workers' compensation insurance is a requirement. Every employer must have some kind of workers' compensation insurance. Some kind meaning it can either purchase the insurance through a large insurance company, or the employer can handle its work comp insurance on its own. It could create its own department that just specializes in handling workers' compensation issues. But the requirement in California is that every employer must have a way, a standardized way of dealing with work related injuries. Right? And that is a benefit that is free to the employees. Right? It's free to all employees because that is a benefit that's calculated into the cost of doing business in California. That's why companies, a lot of them, veer away from California because California is an expensive place to do business. And this workers' compensation benefits is one of the very reasons why it's expensive for companies to do business in California. So the question is, how do you get workers' compensation benefits? We know that employers have it. Well, how do you use it? Well, anytime you suffer an injury, you're eligible for work comp insurance, right? So let's just use an example here, okay? We'll say that you are working at, let's say, ABC hardware store, right? You're working at ABC hardware store, and let's say you suffer an injury. Well, how does workers' compensation step in and start to uh, provide you with benefits and get you the treatment that you need? Well, most likely your hardware store doesn't have the infrastructure, doesn't have a department that handles work comp on its own. So what does it do? Well, it does what probably 90% of employers out there does. It will go to an insurance company, okay? Insurance company. Let's call this um, XYZ Insurance. Okay? So your employer will go to XYZ Insurance and says, "Let me buy work comp insurance from you." So I will pay you a premium. Okay? ABC hardware store will pay XYZ Insurance a premium, some money, and in return, XYZ will give ABC work comp insurance. What does this remind you of? Well, just like everybody else, when you own a car and you drive in California, you need to carry liability insurance, right? It doesn't matter if you have insurance for your own car, if your car gets totaled or anything like that, but you need liability insurance, which means that if you hit somebody else and that person gets injured or that person's car gets destroyed, you are responsible for paying for that damage, right? That is basically the same idea in workers' comp. The state of California requires every employer to buy work comp insurance, either from an insurance company or it has its own work comp insurance, whatever it may be. Most commonly, it's this type of situation here where your employer buys from an insurance company and the insurance company gives your employer work comp insurance, right? This is the most typical situation, and this is something the state of California requires, just like it requires any driver to carry liability insurance when they're on the road, right? So what does it take for you to get benefits? Well, all you have to do is report your injury. All right, so let's just use another example here. Let's say you were carrying some lumbar here since you're working at a hardware store. Let's say you were carrying large piece of wood to get cut, right? You want to take this piece of wood over to the cutting machine to get it cut in half for one of your customers, and while doing so, you injured your low back and you start feeling pain, right? So now what do you do? How do you get work comp insurance? How do you get paid for your time off of work? How do you get paid for your treatment? Well, very simple. All you need to do is tell your employer, one, tell your supervisor. All right. Just tell your supervisor what happened. Say, I have an injury. My back hurts now. I need to see a doctor, right? Once you tell your supervisor, everything starts to fall into place. Your supervisor will then tell his supervisor, who will then report it to risk management or report it to HR, and they will go ahead and contact their insurance company. So then, once you tell your supervisor and everything falls into place, ABC Hardware Store will eventually call XYZ Insurance and say, hey, I need to cash in on this work comp insurance. Right? At that point, XYZ will stand in for your employer and will go ahead and issue you all the benefits that you are in need of. So if you need to go see a doctor, they'll make sure you go see the right doctor. If you need benefits for your time off of work, they'll make sure you're covered for those benefits. Whatever it is, from here on out, once you report your injury, that's the last thing you have to do on your end. Just tell your supervisor. Once you do so, XYZ will then step in and make sure everything else is taken care of.